Now, we need a process to follow when we're selling. Wouldn't it be great if there was a process you could follow that would maximise your chances and lead to lots of successful sales? And there is, and that's what I want to tell you about now. And then we're going to look at the detail of the steps of this process throughout the whole rest of this course. Now, I'm actually going to show you two processes now. I'm going to show you the old process of selling and the new process of selling. The old process of selling, I think, is worth knowing about so you can see how not to do it. It is fascinating, though, because a lot of people still use the old process of selling, and yet it's terrible. So this is the old process of selling in this diagram here. Okay, it starts with contacting the customer. Probably ring them up from some database of names or whatever. It might even be to knock on their front door. And there are actually commercial salespeople who drive around industrial estates just knocking on doors. That strikes me as very inefficient. I'm not sure if I agree with that as a process, but anyway. So you contact the person first of all, and then the first thing you do is you qualify them. You work out, are they a suitable potential customer? Remember, this is the sales process I don't like. So this is the second step, is to qualify. So for example, if it was a Windows salesman, they'd ring you up and they would ask you certain questions to qualify. They would ask you, do you own the house? Because if you're renting, you're not worth pitching to. Do you own the house? And then they would ask you, have you had your windows done already? They're the main two things they want to know. If you own the house and you haven't had your windows done, you're a potential customer. There's one other qualifying question they sometimes ask, by the way, which is, are you married? Because they know from experience that if somebody's married, you've got to see both halves of the couple. So are they single or married? So you qualify the person. The next thing you do is you try to get to present. So this is where the Windows person will turn up and they'll put you through 3 hours of purgatory as they drone through every single reason why you might buy Windows from them. And in fact, 3 hours is quite a significant number, because apparently if a customer is subjected to more than 3 hours, they crack. There's a point around the 3 hour mark where the customer thinks, oh God, all right, I'll just do this. And so that's why with timeshare presentations and things, they quite often last longer than 3 hours. What a horrible way to sell something to somebody. And at the end, finally, there's the close. So the Windows people say, and if you buy them today, you can have a free extra window, or you can have a front door included if you buy more than 7 windows. And that's the close. And there are whole books on closing techniques. It's all focused towards this final close. Now, the problem with this old process of selling is that it's really time consuming. It takes a lot of time to ring all these people up and then go and present to them. So it's time consuming. It's also really unpleasant. It's horrible for the salesperson doing it, because they've got to force their way in, do a long presentation, have a scary close. It's also horrible for the customer, because they have this feeling of pressure, and it's just not a good process. But it is still used a lot by window people and other old-fashioned sales operations. Now, I'd like to tell you about the new process of selling. It's not that new. It's been around a while. It's the relationship sales method. And it's much better. Now here's a diagram of the relationship selling, and you can see it's the other way round. So it basically consists of much more time up front and much less time later on in the process. So it starts with building up a relationship with the customer. Now the old process doesn't involve any relationship. I mean, they might come in the house and go, oh, that's a nice dog. Anyway, Windows. But there's not really much relationship. The new process, it's all about the relationship. The customer has to trust you. You've got to understand the customer. They need to like you. So there's a whole lot of relationship stuff that we're going to look at in detail on this course. And that's the first step, build a relationship with the customer. It takes a bit of time, but it makes everything else easier later. The second step is to identify the needs that the customer has, to diagnose what their problem is. So there's a certain amount of questioning here. Hopefully the customer will be quite happy to tell you what their problem is, because after all, they have presumably asked you to come and see them, or they do have a problem they would like to be fixed. And if they like you, they're much more likely to tell you what their problem is. And you mustn't assume that you know what their problem is. You can't tell till you talk to them. So the guy who comes into the BMW dealership driving a Volvo estate, what sort of car is he looking for? Now, you might assume he's looking for a big, safe estate car, but no, maybe that's not even his car. Maybe he's bored with his car. Maybe he's having a midlife crisis and he wants a sports car. Maybe he likes the size of it, but he wants something that's faster. You just don't know. So there's a bit of diagnosing. It's easy enough, by the way, just to say what sort of car are you looking for? Or what do you like about your Volvo? What don't you like about your Volvo? So it's easy to diagnose. So the second step is to find out what it is that they need. The third step is then to prescribe a solution. Now, you may have noticed I'm using words like prescribe and diagnose, and these are doctor words, aren't they? And this second process is really like being a doctor. Ideally, you would have a doctor who you like, who finds out what's wrong with you, and then who prescribes a solution and says, what you need is this. Wouldn't it be awful to have a doctor who did the first thing, the contact, qualified, prescribe, close process? Imagine a doctor saying, right, what's your name again? Now, are you ill and have you got money? Great. Well, let me present these special red pills designed by NASA, easy to swallow coating. They cure everything. Whatever's wrong with you, they'll cure it. Yeah, don't worry, they're brilliant. And if you buy them today, you can have the big bottle for the price of the small one. Now, I don't know about you, but I would worry. I think that would just be the worst doctor ever. So what we want is a doctor who builds up a relationship with us, who we feel cares about us, who knows and understands us. And by the way, we don't always get this these days with the pressure that the NHS is on. 6 minutes per appointment, I think it is, with GPs. So very hard for a GP to build a relationship, and I think that's a problem. Then they diagnose, find out what's wrong with you. Then they prescribe a solution. The last step of the process is just to take the order. There shouldn't be any difficult closing required, because if your customer likes you, they've told you what they need, you've shown them that you can do what they want, why would there be a problem? There shouldn't really even be any objections, although there might be a bit of objection handling. It could be when you prescribe the solution, they say, but I don't have the money for that, or I don't like swallowing pills or whatever. So there might be something that you didn't discover early on. You should have, but if there is something you didn't discover, there might be a little bit of objection handling before you take the order. But really, taking the order is routine, or it should be. So you may not think of a doctor as a pill salesman, but in a way they are. That's what they're doing, really. But of course, the process is so good, this diagnosing and prescribing process is so good, you don't feel that you're being sold those pills. You feel that you're being helped, which of course you are. And it should be exactly the same with a salesperson. So if I go to see a customer to sell them a training course, I don't ram some course down their throat that they don't want. I find out what it is that they need, what are their problems, what do they need help with, what do they want to improve, and then I prescribe a solution that's perfect for them and take the order. We book in a date and they do it, and it's great. Everybody's happy. So the second process is so much better than the first process, and that's what we're going to look at on this course.